Hey there, Virgo. How you doing? So it's been a while since I've done a forecast. I've fully recovered now, and I'm here to talk about the Virgo forecast, your forecast, whether you're a Sun in Virgo person or a Virgo rising, Virgo ascendant person. This is a forecast taking you from the full moon in Libra on the 13th of April, coming up real soon, right the way through to the 27th of April with the new moon in Taurus. So this is a really jam-packed 2 weeks, I have to say. And to me, I really get the sense that we are into completely new territory, that we are really stepping beyond where we've been really for the last 4 or 5 months. And I'll be explaining why in this roughly 30-minute video. So if you're new to this channel, welcome. My name is Louisa Tanner Munson, and Feel Good Astrology is my brainchild. I guess I just want to create astrology in such a way that you get a message where you think in terms of possibilities. I know a lot of astrology can sound really fatalistic. So, if you're looking for something that helps you to tune into your own inspiration, then hopefully this is it. If you've come back, then welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me once again. And I hope you'll find the message useful today. So like I said, I'm going to sort of take you through the next 2 weeks of the astrological weather, the planetary weather, how it's going to affect you as a Virgo from the full moon in Libra right the way through to the new moon in Taurus. So let's get cracking. Let's have a look right now. So I've got my trusty slides up. And the first thing I want to do is just talk you through, what we're doing. We're going from the full moon through a waning moon phase right the way through to the new moon. Now, what this means is, around the time of the full moon, things tend to get a little bit frantic. We tend to get very, very busy. Lots of busy patterns arise. And we really get the cost of the choices that we've been making. So, for instance, if you're living your life in a particular way, you get really real to the cost of the choices that you've made in your life. So, for instance, there might be some really good payoffs with this, but there might be some bad residues or side effects. And so we get really, really real to them. The thing about the full moon is it's consciously illuminated. And so everything is like coming at us. The result of our cumulative vibration seems to just be reverberating. And the circumstances that we've helped to put into motion seem to be reverberating around us. And so we can't really escape it. All we can do is really observe it. It's kind of really in your face. It can be a very, very chaotic time, and one of kind of like full manifestation. Then after the full moon, we're going into this waning moon phase, which essentially is the moon getting smaller and smaller and smaller until we get to this new moon on the 27th that's in Taurus. Now, during the waning gibbous phase, we are beginning to consciously let go of the things that we've noticed, we've observed in the full illumination. We realize there are some things that aren't working for us and we let them go, consciously make that decision. And then we get to the third quarter, which is roughly about a week in. It's halfway through this 2-week period. And we go from being very externalized and really noticing what's going on for us. And then we start to get little nudges, sort of intuitive nudges. And we are still pushed to let go of things, release things. But now it's a lot more of an internalized process. So I really think it's a time when we need faith. We need to come into our own knowing, into our intuition, into I think the best way of being around this time is to come into acceptance. So we accept the things that are going on, and recognize that there are some things that maybe we don't want, but we can accept them for now. I think it's a time of finding peace as much as we can, because in that peace we are releasing the concerns, we're releasing the fears, we're releasing all the negative emotions that can almost keep us resistantly in place. And then right at the end of this 2-week period, we're at the space of the new moon. And the invitation here is to really clear away all the things that are unconscious, that are like jostling for energy, things that we don't have time for, and just have this beautiful, clean space to create something new, something really compelling, something really exciting that really matches the vibration that you're being or wanting to be. And so if we look at this as a diary, You can see the full moon in Libra is on the 13th, Sunday, the 13th of April. And the new moon is 2 weeks later on the 27th. The third quarter, this sort of halfway point, is happening on the 21st. And if you have a look at this, you'll see that the first week appears to be very, very busy. Now, I haven't mentioned all the moon moves from sign to sign to sign, or any of the moon aspects apart from this full moon and the new moon. And that's because the moon moves so fast. But I'm definitely commenting on all the major aspects, the squares, oppositions, trines, conjunctions between the other planets. And also any sort of new retrograde activity. And that's the first thing I want to mention. On the 13th of April, literally as we come into the time of the full moon in Libra, Libra is ruled by Venus. And interestingly, Venus, that's been retrograde since the 2nd of March, actually stops going retrograde. It stations and goes direct at the exact degree that this full moon is in. So at the degree that Venus is in at the time of the full moon. So it's really quite poignant. I really think this full moon is helping us to review our relationships and to take stock of them and to kind of stop and stand still and get ready for something new and something deeper with greater possibilities. But one thing that really strikes me is we're coming to the end of this very, very intense retrograde period. So from the 26th of November last year, we had Mercury retrograde. Then we had Mars going retrograde on December the 6th. Then all the way through January, Mars and Mercury were pretty... Sorry, Mars was retrograde. And he was retrograde until the 23rd of February. And then we had a space, like this lovely clearing with no personal planets retrograde until the 2nd of March, when Venus went retrograde, then Mercury went retrograde again. And now we've just got Venus going direct. It's a beautiful turnaround because, there are the personal planets and there are the outer planets and the sort of mid ones, Jupiter and Saturn. But the personal planets, you've got the sun and the moon, which don't go retrograde, but Mercury is about your thinking, your communication. Venus is about your relationships and your ability to feel good and to be in flow. And Mars very much about your vitality and virility and your ability to take action. These three really affect us at a personal level. And when they go retrograde, they cause all sorts of little new calibrations that we're going through. We are recalibrating, and we've essentially been recalibrating since the 26th of November until the 13th of April, bar the time between the 23rd of February and the 2nd of March, which isn't much time. So it's felt super intense. And so this particular full moon, although the coding for this full moon is super intense, there is a marked difference. We're not going to be internalizing our journey anymore so much, but we are becoming consciously aware of what we've been going through. And I see this as a real help to move forwards, because the retrogrades often have us standing still for quite a while. And so I really think if you felt like you've been stood still since I'm going to say from November, but even from October, and this for another reason, which will come out in your reading. But if you feel like you've been really standing still from autumn last year, then I think from this particular full moon and this particular forecast, you're going to start moving quite exponentially. In this first week, then, what I really like about it is, the Saturn in a conjunction to the North Node is really encouraging you to take stock. Anywhere where you haven't fully accounted for all the loose ends, it's time to now do that. This is absolutely being serious about your fate and your direction. So I see that as a helpful move. And then we've got Mercury coming into Aries, Mars into Leo, and the Sun into Taurus. Now, these three are really fantastic, these moves. First of all, Mercury started his last retrograde in Aries, went into Pisces. He's not happy in Pisces. He's been going direct since the 7th, but when he goes into Aries, I think, it's time for us to be communicating again and to feel really dynamic about it. So things are really coming on in leaps and bounds. We're feeling much better, and we're able to really communicate with people and share our ideas, and they make sense. We can hold a thought in our head without losing track. Mercury's your ruling planet, and and so when he was in Pisces, which is the opposite sign, that would have really been quite hard for you. Mars going into Leo then is also really helpful. So Mars, before he went retrograde in December, was in Leo, went into Cancer, another water sign, a bit like, Mercury going into Pisces, a water sign. Mars in Cancer can get really crabby, like his ability to take action is really emotional and quite moody. And so as Mars moves into Leo fully, I really see that the inner creative warrior is coming out. We are coming back into a time of vitality, which is going to be great. Now, in between those two, Mercury makes a conjunction in to Neptune in Aries. This is the first conjunction between Mercury and Neptune in Aries. Very, very special, because Neptune's going to be in Aries for the next 14 years. And so every conjunction that Mercury and Neptune make from here on in for the next 14 years are always going to be in Aries. So there's this new sense of Mercury, our thoughts, and Neptune, our creativity and our ability to go to the next level and to, like, almost through another veil, it's increased. And of course, Mercury is your ruling planet. So this is really beautiful. This is enhancing your ability and really adding a depth and spiritual, like a spiritual ring around things. So I think this is very, very helpful, especially if you've got a desire to sort of stand in place as some kind of spiritual entrepreneur, or absolutely something based on what you believe to be your sort of karmic direction. This is going to be very helpful. On the 19th, the sun goes into Taurus. That's another fellow earth sign to your Virgo. So I think this is going to be really helpful. There's a sort of Sampatica kind of thing, where you really feel in alignment. Mars makes a lovely trine to Neptune. Now, Mars is also making a trine to Mercury, your ruling planet. So this is fantastic. Neptune is really highlighted in a beautiful way right now, and Neptune's just moved signs. And so, Mars and Neptune working together is really giving you the energy to move forwards with your creativity and, with your thinking around it. So it's all really good. This first week, even though we're in the waning phase, is pushing you forwards. And then the last day of all, Venus makes a conjunction to the North Node. So we're really in our heart centers, really feeling that sort of karmic pull of, what it is we're here to do. And there are 3 very dynamic sextiles that are exact on that day, including Uranus, which is really speeding things up. Sextiles are like a building block, and we need quite a few building blocks to be able to build our wall. So it's really, really helpful. And then we get to the midpoint. Now, this second part of this forecast becomes a lot more internalized, a lot more serious, and possibly a bit more stressful. There are some big patterns, and in a second I will show you the charts and you can see for yourself and I'll talk you through it. But essentially we've got this big T-square energy going on. So the sun makes an exact square with Mars on the 21st. Then on the 23rd, the sun makes an exact square with Pluto. That means that Mars and Pluto are in an opposition, more or less. And then for the whole of this week, Mars and Pluto are coming into their last opposition of this series. So every couple of years, Mars comes into an opposition with Pluto. Normally, it's just one opposition, and then they go off on their merry ways. But because they came into an opposition just before Mars went retrograde in December, so the actual Mars and Pluto opposition was in November of last year, November the 3rd. Thereafter, he went retrograde over this opposition again. Now it's going direct again. Both of them are going direct again. They're reforming this opposition for the last time. So we have also been in this stasis between this Mars and Pluto opposition. And so as we're coming into this new moon, we've got the lovely new moon energy, and we've got the full sort of totality of this Mars and Pluto opposition. So I'm going to piece this together in your chart and tell you or share with you what I think this means to you, because Mars is very much about your vitality, and Pluto really shows us where we don't want to lose control, and where we might fight to get things just as we like it. And so I really see that we're in a bit of an unconscious fight from survival to thrival. It's like survival, thrive, and they're both going in different directions. And so I think, I know how it's affected me, and I know I felt very much pulled in different directions during this time. So it'll be interesting to see how this lies out in your chart. So let's have a look at your charts now. But before I do, I just want to say a massive thank you to everybody who sponsors my channel in all the various ways. You can buy me a coffee. There's a link below if that's what you'd like to do. Or, if you want to become a member, I've got a membership scheme now where you can get deeper forecasts every 2 weeks and all sorts of other benefits and bonuses. So however you're sponsoring this channel or supporting me in my work, I really, really appreciate you. And I just want, to acknowledge you in this moment. Thank you so much. Thank you, really, truly. So anyway, these are the 3 charts I've selected. So the first one is the full moon in Libra. And, I've set this to have a very sort of a Virgo standpoint. And you can see that this full moon is happening in this sort of second house part of your chart. And that makes the sun in a conjunction with Chiron in the 8th house. Now, this is the 8th house can be quite tense. And of course, when we're talking about money and how much we're worth, that can bring up a lot of self-sabotage and a lot of funny feelings going on. You'll also see that we've got this Mars and Pluto opposition. Now, I've made it into the full square, and in truth, we're kind of almost coming in. It really depends on your orbs. Normally when I'm doing client work, I use a maximum orb of 8 degrees. But I noticed on astro.com, they're now preferring to use an orb of up to 10 degrees. But I can see over this period that we have this, the making of this really big square. And around the time of the full moon, sort of energies are all amplified. And so I've the sun and Chiron in their conjunction are in a square to Mars, and they're almost, or just, like Astro has it that they are in a square, but it's a really, really wide square with Pluto. And of course, the moon is in the exact opposition. So as the moon's coming into this full moon, just after it goes into the exact square with Mars. And then after that, it goes into the exact square with Pluto. But this is a very tense pattern that's going on. Now, I do have a separate video as well that you can watch where I go even more into the actual chart of the actual full moon. But, just to sort of set the scene for this 2-week forecast, this is very tense. And this is getting us to consider not just how you do money and your value in relationship to other people, but it's also bringing in a real review of how you manage your life, with Pluto here in the 6th house part of your chart. Now, Mars is going to flip from being in the 11th to the 12th over the course of the first week. So that's going to slightly change the emphasis, and the sun will end up at the end of this forecast, will end up in the sign of Taurus. But, this T square here between Mars, Pluto and the sun, it persists throughout the 2 weeks. So it's really interesting to keep a watch on this. This is an area of tension that's going to be explored, and it's going to get magnified as we go through this period. Now, these 3 charts I'm looking at are the full moon, then the 3rd quarter on the 21st, and then the new moon in Taurus on the 27th. Now, if you watch the position of the moon as I flick through, I'm just going to go back. So the moon starts here. And it's moving around. And when we get to the 3rd quarter, you'll see that the moon is in a conjunction with Pluto. So the moon starts off in the full moon, sort of interacting with Mars and Pluto and the sun. At the time of the 3rd quarter, the moon is in interacting with Pluto and with Mars and the sun still. And then as we get to the very last chart, it's the new moon. So we've got the sun and the moon, Pluto and also Mars. So the sun and the moon are really working with Pluto and Mars throughout this whole 2-week period. And of course, the sun is very much our externalized, egoic self, our personality. The moon is very much our internal, our psyche, our emotions. So you got your behaviors and your emotions. You've got your male and female side, the light, the dark, not ascribing light or dark to either sides necessarily. There's the push and the pull. It's going on throughout this whole time. And, this push and the pull are really catalyzed really right up until the last moment, at the time of the new moon in Taurus, the push and the pull coming together. And it's almost like this moment of stillness or this moment of bare potential. But up until that time, it really feels like the sun and the moon are really churning. And of course, while they're doing that, Pluto and Mars are really sort of like pulling out into their different directions. Now, one of the things with Pluto and Mars, Mars comes into this opposition every couple of years. So seeing as Pluto's in this side of your chart for the next the next 20 years or so, maybe it's a little bit less than that now, it's 19 and a half. That means there's going to be another 8, maybe 9 oppositions between Pluto and Mars over the next course of 20 years. And they're always going to be in this position in your charts between the 6th house and the 12th. And so the Pluto in the 6th is really showing your desire to get control in your life. The 6th is like the office manager. It's like, how balanced are you in managing your home, your work, your laundry, your health, your diet, having everything really roted and understood. Your desire to manage everything and have everything work in a very manifest, organized, obvious, conscious way is really, really strong. And wherever Pluto shows up, I think he's giving us a lesson in where we're trying too hard. And so I see Pluto here. You're really working your butt off to create something in your life, to like create your station, to feel satisfied that you've ticked all the boxes and that you're going to be safe and sound, most likely. And of course, Mars coming here into the 12th house is really showing that no matter how hard you're trying, you've got another program that's playing into this that actually wants you to delve right into the soul, right into the unconscious, right into the imaginary, the unreal, the unmaterialized, or the dematerialized, through the veil, through, there's a part of you that really wants to go into the unknown and be quite adventurous about it. And so it's like you've got these very, very much, you've got these two minds. One is wanting to really survive and stay alive. And the other is kind of, I want to thrive in the right way for me. And that might not be to be picture perfect. It might be that I take some twists and turns. And so they really are at odds. And during this time, the sun is, I think, almost going to be a deciding factor. The sun is really helping, to bring it to the full conscious awareness. So, during this opposition, it started coming in at the end of October. We didn't necessarily have the light of the sun really illuminating it. And of course, at the time of the full moon, we go back to the 13th, you've got the sun and the moon working together. It's really bringing up those patterns so you can see where you're really thriving and really trying to survive, trying to keep your head above the water and really like get everything just right. And yeah, we've not had the conscious awareness of it as easily. It's not been as easy to see as it is right now. And that might be because we've also had all those retrogrades. It's really helped us to see where we can slip up. The retrogrades can, be times when we really take our foot off the gas and we make a few mistakes and then we realize just how vulnerable we are. And of course, that's going to bring out your control mechanism even more. Now, one of the things about this full moon, sorry, I'm going back and forth in time. This full moon, the sun is in a conjunction with Chiron. And so that's bringing up a sense of wounding, which again is fully illuminated. And it's in this 8th house area, which is about shared money, shared assets, how you get on with the people you live with, possibly the reputation that you have at home, how your family have treated you, and whether it's fair or not. It also brings up things like bullying, in particular scapegoating, and things like gaslighting that can happen at home, where you're meant to be supported. The 8th house can show where you get shame, blame, guilt, anger, and all of these values that get put on you. And they're not necessarily nice values. They could be that you have, like, people might be putting nice things on you, like that you're a great responsible person or something, or deeply loving. But often people are in this judgment fest. And so around this time of the full moon, I really think you're helping yourself. You're helping to judge yourself. And bring it into the full light of consciousness. And of course, if you're judging yourself, you're most likely judging your ability to keep it together, and also looking at where maybe you've messed up a few times, especially if you've got planets around these areas in your birth chart, if you know your birth chart. So just be aware of those patterns. You might find, because this is also like the 8th house is also a house that we kind of share with other people. So you might be aware of the pain of somebody else very, very close to you. And because of their pain, how your life has got chaotic. So it can work for you or the other person in your life. But one way or another, it feels like the insecurity, the old childhood wound that's not prepared to kind of see itself, in not seeing itself, you don't get to see the drama that you create around you, so that you don't have to look at your problem. But of course, this full moon really shows it. So you really get true to the cost of your behaviors. Over the course of this 2 weeks, the sun actually moves out of this area and into the 9th house. And what I really like about this, and this is really apparent from the 19th, and especially as we're going into the second week on the 21st, it really feels like you can now see a clearing. So from the 21st, it feels like finally, by facing the things that you've been afraid of, facing your own insecurities, no matter how hard it is, you realize you've almost got your back against the wall, and you just kind of have to do it. But as you face yourself, you realize it wasn't as hard as you thought. You had built it up in your imagination quite a bit. And there's a sense of freedom. And so the next thing to really sort of come out of this is this sense of freedom that happens when you face yourself. Now, there are some helpers in this 2-week forecast, Uranus being one of them. I mean, Uranus is fabulously, aspecting different things, so Uranus is really beautifully working. I should have a trine here as well, actually. So he's working ongoing with Pluto to really sort of uncover our very stuck patterns so that we can shake them up and move them. But Uranus here is also working with Venus and Saturn and the North Node and Neptune, really helping us use our imagination, our compassion, our ability to really want something really karmic and purposeful in our life. He's also working with Mars, and Mars is also sort of emphasizing this area. So I think if you're ready to face yourself, your life is going to move very, very fast. It's almost as if your desire for perfection and your desire for success has actually been held back by you not facing the one thing that you've been trying to cover up. It's like as soon as you can acknowledge and admit to where maybe you're not as perfect, it's almost as if the world sees you fully and can really see your skills, your love, your compassion, your talent. And of course, once you are understood properly as a full energetic force, it feels like that raises you up exponentially. So that's my real feeling here. Now, of course, we can read all of these aspects in terms of love and also career. And so that's my last thing that I just want to share with you. If you are wanting to know more about how to use these energies from the perspective of love and relationships and connections, or career and ambition, and obviously your money, then you might be interested in my new membership. So I've got a membership that I host on school.com. /Feel Good Astrology. It's $22 a month, and it also has 1 week's free trial. And with that, every fortnight when I do my full moon fortnightly reading and then my new moon fortnightly reading, you'll also get a relationships and connections forecast for your sign. In fact, for all 12 signs, and also a career and ambition forecast for all 12 signs. So what that means is you can check out your sign. You can also check out the sign of your family, your friends. I always think that it's good to listen to your ascendant sign and also your sun sign. I think that gives you a really good broad understanding of what's going on. So that's 2 relationship and connections a month, and also 2 career and ambition forecasts a month. So that's 4 extra forecasts that aren't released publicly, but it's just within this particular membership. There's also a community hangout. Had one last night, and it was a blast. And whatever people want to talk about, we I collect the ideas in, and that's what we talk about during that time. For some people, they just in the membership just for the forecasts. But for instance, if you've wanted to learn with me or have a consultation with me or come to a webinar, for instance, then there's also discounts, which might be of interest to you. So yeah, that's my membership. If that sounds like something that you would like to partake in, it also helps to support my channel as well, and you'll get a shout out in my videos. But if that's something that appeals, then please do just go to www.school.com. That's SKOOL.com/Feel Good Astrology. So there you go. I hope that was helpful to you, Virgo. Wishing you loads and loads of love over this next 2-week period, and catch you in a forecast real soon. Bye for now.